All right, so happy late Tuesday, or whenever you're watching this. I have pretty exciting news. So, if you followed along in my channel and on some recent videos, I talked about how I have been talking to several people who attended Sarah Boone's trial. And I really wanted to put together a video that talked about the jury's reaction and also maybe things that we couldn't see of Sarah. Because as you saw when we watched the trial, all you could really see was the back of her head, maybe sometimes the side of her face, but it was really hard to see. And we have more than enough stuff now to go ahead, put a full video together, really interesting things, a lot that we can't see on camera. And I'm really excited. So it should be coming out either tomorrow or on Thursday. I'm hoping for tomorrow, but there's a lot of editing that has to get done. So jumping in today's video, we are going to be watching James Owen give an interview after Sarah's guilty verdict. I haven't seen any of this, so if I pause a lot and talk a lot, it's just because it's going to be brand new to me too. So let's get into it.
I'm joined now by Sarah Boone's attorney, James Owens. Mr. Owens, it's great to have you back on the show. Thanks so much for being with me. What was your client's reaction when she heard the verdict, guilty, read in court?
Yeah, it was this past Friday evening, and I would say shock. We were not, she nor I were anticipating guilty as charged. You know, we considered that the jury might convict her of a lesser charge, or of the first lesser was manslaughter and the second lesser was culpable negligence. So yeah, she was in shock that they found her guilty as charged, which was the second-degree murder.
I'm struggling to figure that one out because I had made a bet that the jury would come back under 2 hours, and they did. I found her wholly dislikable all through the entire process, from the moment she was arrested to the moment she was convicted. I can't imagine I'm alone. Everyone I've spoken to who's been following the case, albeit not in the courtroom,
Agreed,
has said the same thing. They'll throw the book at her. Why did your client and why did you feel that that wasn't going to happen?
Well, she actually did pretty good on the stand if you watch her testimony. As far as Sarah goes, she actually did pretty good, I felt.
So what does pretty good mean? That she didn't come across as totally unlikable? You know, I think that she held her composure, but that doesn't make her likable. And also going through all the evidence and her taking the stand, and then after her taking the stand, all of the videos and everything came out after the fact, that it really diminished anything positive that would have come from her being on the stand.
But you know, ultimately, as you mentioned earlier, the decision as to whether or not to accept a plea offer or to take the case to trial is ultimately only the client's decision. You know, we can tell, lawyer can tell her the pros and cons and the strengths and weaknesses of her position versus the state's position.
Sure. Did you recommend to her to take the deal and she went against your recommendation? Because knowing how she's been with the last, 8 trial attorneys who, she spent before you, I would imagine that would be a scenario I'd believe.
Well, we talked about it in depth, and I try not to give my opinion initially. I want them to try to make the decision on their own, and then if they ask me for my opinion, then I give it to them based on
Did
my.
She?
Yes.
And?
What'd you say?
Well, that was something that I suggested she strongly consider, was that plea. I think with 15 years, you do 80% of that sentence here in Florida, plus she'd done already 4.5 years. So she would have had, I think, about 8 years to do. So yeah, that was.
So she went against your advice. I sit here with a smile only because it's like I've heard this story so many times before, and I think you knew as well coming in as number 9 that she wouldn't take your advice. Have you had a chance to talk with her since the conviction? And is she rethinking her decision to ignore everybody who's smarter at this game than she is?
No, we haven't talked about that. She's got a sentencing coming up December the 2nd, Monday, December the 2nd at 1:30. So we're going to deal with preparing her for that. She's going to speak at that. And then there's a pre-sentence investigation that the judge ordered. So we'll work on that.
And let's pause on that to note that, as we now know, that James Owen said that he plans on taking, almost 40 minutes for his entire closing wrapping up of this trial. So knowing that is that long, and I think the prosecutor said they need 10 or 15 minutes. So knowing that it's that long, he is surely going to ask for a retrial. And I think that's also why he's answering very carefully. He's not completely throwing her under the bus, saying she didn't listen to me, as he could have, since the host was definitely saying, oh, she didn't listen to all of her attorneys. So definitely be expecting that. It hopefully is a good closing that he has to say, but it also could be very annoying depending on how he decides to phrase where he's going with this new trial.
And the judge
what do you think she's going to get? What do you think the judge will sentence her to?
Well, there's a range, and I think the state attorney had said the low end was 22 years, and of course, life is the top of the range, and the judge is going to have to make a decision. As you know, there was testimony that she suffered from the battered spouse syndrome by our expert, and also the state attorney's expert testified. Both of them agreed that she suffered. So there is some mitigating factors, although the jury did not find that she was justified in the use of force that she used as a result of the battered spouse syndrome. I think the judge can consider the fact that ultimately, it was a dysfunctional, toxic relationship in which both of them probably abused each other.
Thanks for watching.
Okay, so I just went and checked to see if they had a second part to that video, and if they do, it is not up yet. But that ended so promptly that I'm inclined to think that a second part will be coming out. So he talked about the judge, and as I have previously said, I really hope the judge gets into the details of this case, what he thought and how he felt throughout it all. Remember that she was writing the judges many letters, some trying to be overly nice, and then some just sarcastic and rude. She was rude to all of her attorneys, probably even James Owen, but he is still representing her, so he's not going to say anything bad. But yeah, the judge has the ability to go ahead and just lay it all out when he sentences her. And I guess I really haven't sat back and thought about what the judge will take into account for the sentencing when it comes to how many years she really should get. I'm inclined to think that it's not going to be the minimum, not going to be 22. I don't know if I could see it being life in prison either. And then the idea of, well, does she get parole or not? So maybe if it was the furthest extent and it was life, maybe he would still offer parole at some point. Going to be interesting. Anyway, thank you for watching. If there is a part 2 for this video, I will be on it. And make sure you check out my video in the next couple days for the jury and their reaction to the entire trial.